Hello out there. I'm Chris Bisha, editor-in-chief of 360degreesound.com. My colleague, Austin Bureau Chief David Hopper, is the author of our long-running series on one-hit wonders through the decades of the 1960s through what we refer to as the aughts. David's been going year by year, highlighting the best artists who charted only once in their career on the US Billboard Top 40. Glad to have you along, David.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about one hit wonders.
Yeah, this is great. So in this episode, we turn our focus to the year 1984. In 1984, President Ronald Reagan was reelected, defeating Fritz Mondale in a landslide. Apple released its first Macintosh computer, and we all ate like kings off McDonald's when the U.S. wins, you win promotion when the Soviet Union boycotted the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. The PG-13 film rating also debuted that year, and the year's top grossing films were Beverly Hills Cop, Ghostbusters, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. David, 1984 has been referred to by some pop culture commentators as pop music's greatest year. How has 84 earned that reputation?
Yeah, there's a number of reasons, and we've seen a lot of retrospective articles, this year and in recent years talking about it. But one thing, and that's one of the more obvious ones, is like you think of all the huge stars in 1984 that were basically at the top of their game, like Prince, Michael Jackson, Bruce Springsteen. Madonna's career was really taking off then. She was a huge star then. So I mean, those four alone like produced so many hit singles. And then you had, Lionel Richie had a huge album in 84 that had singles into 80 in 83 that had singles into 84. Also, Tina Turner had a huge album. And so you had all these stars, and the big thing that Michelangelo Matos, the author of a great book on 1984, talks about is Thriller kind of changed the game in terms of artists releasing more singles for each album. So basically, there was like so many albums that had like five singles, and so many of them were hits. And for many years, artists would only do one or two, maybe three from an album. So Thriller was a game changer in that regard. And yeah, I'd say that was probably the key reason.
All right. Well, let me remind everybody who perhaps wasn't around as I was at the top of my game in 1984 of what the top 10 pop songs were. So number one was Prince's When Doves Cry. Two was What's Love Got to Do with It by Tina Turner. Three was Say, Say, Say by Michael Jackson with Paul McCartney. Footloose, Kenny Loggins was number four. Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now from Phil Collins was also a soundtrack tune, was number five. Van Halen's Jump was number six for the year. Hello from Lionel Richie, as David mentioned, came in at number seven. Yes's Owner of a Lonely Heart was number eight. Another film soundtrack song, Ghostbusters by Ray Parker Jr. was number nine for the year. And coming in at number 10 for the year was Culture Club's Karma Chameleon. So some heavy hitters to be sure. But we want to talk about the one hitters, artists that charted only once in their career on the US Billboard Top 40. We'll go through our list of six tunes that David recently posted to 360degreesound.com, and we'll add in a few that didn't make his cut. So the first on your list was Shannon's Let the Music Play, which peaked at number 8 on February 25th, 1984. Now, I was in college at the time. I had a friend on our dorm floor at Michigan State who was a DJ before everyone was a DJ. And he had a master mix of this track that he would blast with regularity. It's such a great groove, man. What a great tune.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites. And it's a huge song in terms of really showing off what the Roland TR 808 could do. That was the drum machine that became super influential in house music and R&B and hip hop, and that was one of the first big hits with that. And it was also kind of ushered in the Latin freestyle, and it was really the first big hit in that style of dance music, which went on to be huge in the 80s and early 90s. And I would say make sure you read our check out our interview with Stephen Voss, author of Let the Music Play, and it's about how synthesizers in the '80s really changed R&B music and the impact that had.
It's just it's a great read. Stephen Voss has a lot of great insights into uh, how instrumental synths were in bringing R&B to the forefront. Um, Then Tracy Ullman, her song "They Don't Know" peaked at number 8 on April 28th. And Tracy Ullman was somewhat of a Renaissance woman of the era. She had her TV show, she was a comic, and it turned out she could sing as well. And this is a really tasty bit of 50s star-crossed romance pop.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it a lot, and I may have heard it before, but I really wasn't that familiar with it. I don't think I really hear that much, on the radio or anything. But it's really catchy, and it's very much Phil Spector style, like production. It's got like the bells and the harmonies, and yeah, was it Kirsty McCall actually wrote the song and recorded it before her, and her version's great too. So that wasn't a hit, but worth checking out as well.
Yeah, and it's got a fun video to it as well, not surprisingly, coming from Tracy Ullman. Yeah, that was a great blast from the past. I mean, I remember hearing that song all the time back then, but I'd forgotten
Mhm.
completely about it until reading your list. Um, the next on your list was Laid Back's tune "White Horse," which peaked at number 26 on May 12th. I heard this song all the time in clubs and bigger bars at the time, and I had really no idea what was going on in this song. What is going on in White Horse, David?
I'm not sure if I know. I wrote in the article that White Horse is a reference to heroin and White Pony cocaine, but I was actually just looking at an interview with Laid Back earlier, and they said that White Pony was was heroin too. So maybe they said they were playing with words. So regardless, it's some kind of drug reference, and it's just a weird electro tune that's really groovy, and it's a Danish duo, so they have a heavy accent. And I guess so the one interesting thing to say about that is Prince was a fan, and he encouraged Warner Brothers to release a 12-inch with I believe it was with Dove's Cry on one side, like the 12-inch mix, and White Horse on the other one. He definitely had an impact in that song getting big in the States, and also Prince's big hit B-side hit, Erotic City, definitely has a resemblance to that song, the do 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 do. So I think he was perhaps influenced by Laid Back as well with this music.
Yeah. If you want to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ride the white horse. I heard that. It took me back to so
yeah,
many drunken evenings in the
yeah.
mid 80s. Great. I had no idea Prince was a fan. So that's cool. And When Doves Cry really does have a strong resemblance to White Horse. So another tune on the list is Talk Talk's "It's My Life," which peaked at number 31 on May 19th. Now, this song was ubiquitous on MTV at the time. It would be on 120 Minutes. It was sort of part of that British alternative kind of wave that MTV brought in. I vaguely remember the video as well. So, what's notable about this tune, David?
Well, I can first say what's notable about the video in that it's like a lot of like footage from a BBC wildlife documentary, and then it's like Mark Hollis, the singer, is like it is like just standing with his hand in his coat pockets and like not moving his mouth at all. And apparently it was like some kind of protest against lip syncing that was so common in those days, and I guess still today. But so that was the video is worth checking out. There's actually two versions of the video. I think in the other version they're like dramatically lip singing and being silly and stuff. The whole band, I think. But yeah. So I mean, I just think it's a great like pop song. That they're a great band that it's underrated, and they really changed as they went through their career. Like their later stuff's more kind of post rock, a lot of instrumental, atmospheric music. But so it's kind of interesting their evolution. But I would say check them out if you're not familiar.
Yeah, other than "It's My Life," what's a good entry point for
Oh,
people with Talk
well
Talk?
that whole album. I think the album's It's My Life, but also let's see, Laughing Stock. Such a Shame was a single from that album. But yeah, I would say just try to look up a comp, on streaming or CD and because they have a lot of great tunes. So but
Cool.
but but
Yeah.
only probably like four or five albums. So if you like them, you could go through them all. So
Yeah. A great single and another band that's all the only tune I know.
yeah.
Um, because MTV sort of did bring back just the one song,
Mhm.
one song per band sort of approach. Um, Now the next one on your list is notable to me is Ollie and Jerry, and this is also from a movie from Breakin'. So it's called Breakin'. There's No Stopping Us, which peaked at number 9 on August 4th. So there was a lot of movie songs in the 80s and especially this year. But we have a joke in our house about sequels, and anything that's a two movie gets tagged Electric Boogaloo
Yeah.
because that was Breaking' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah.
But this one's from the original that started it all, started the craze. This one sounds a lot like those early Madonna singles, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a classic dance pop tune. I'd say maybe it in the kind of the boogie subgenre that Stephen Voss talks about in our interview with him. But yeah, just really catchy dance song that probably has some 808 drum machine on it as well. And I guess what's notable about that group, Ollie, was it Ollie and Jerry? Is that
Yes.
what they're? Yeah, they were and Ray Parker Jr., who we mentioned earlier because he had the big hit with the Ghostbusters theme. They were in his band Radio. I think they were they're like the rhythm section in that. So this was kind of like a little side project that ended up being a big hit. They were asked to write a song for the soundstrack. And Jean-Claude Van Damme is is in the film and before he was a star, so it's kind of funny seeing him as like an extra in the music video.
Does he actually break dance?
Yeah, I think he's just kind of dancing in the background. I don't think he's
Okay.
breakdancing.
Just
Yeah.
standing there with a big piece of
Yeah, yeah,
cardboard or something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Ray Parker Jr. and Radio. I'd forgotten all about the and Radio Ray Parker's band. Great, great stuff. The last one that made our post that you included is Romeo Void's "A Girl in Trouble Is a Temporary Thing," which peaked at number 35 on October 27th. Many of us are more familiar with their hit "Never Say Never." Apparently, it didn't crack the top 40.
Yeah.
Mostly, I'm more familiar because of the I might like you better if we slept together" bit, which is notable. Um, and this one has like a banana, interesting, like a Bananarama vibe. I wouldn't have really associated that with Romeo Void at the time, but in retrospect, it kind of does. And I love the heavy Benjamin Bossy sax
Mhm.
throughout the track. It's kind of got
Yeah.
that Sade tone,
Yeah.
great tone, from that era.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna comment on the sax line because I love that. But yeah, I think it was probably more poppy and accessible than their early stuff. I think they only did 3 or 4 albums. I'm really not familiar with their catalog, so I can't really talk too much about their music. But I've had heard a lot of positive things from people. But no, it's a great single, and yeah, was their only one to make the top 40.
Yeah. And it's cool. I mean, that was a band that would probably have been considered, more sort of underground,
Hmm.
to crack the top 40. You started seeing that in this era, when videos could really boost a single.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michelangelo Matos, the author of the 1984 book, talks about that in our interview, just how what a special time it was, and that so many artists were like actually gunning for pop radio. You know, legacy acts or people that had hits years before, but also indie acts, and it was more egalitarian, and that kind of indie acts kind of had more access, and you would have these kind of one-off hits from underground bands. So, and it's
And there
just
was
a
a
great variety. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a quote. He quoted somebody. I think it was like an A&R person, or I don't know, forget who he was quoting. But this woman talked about anything that was indie, anything that was underground. They considered the same. If it was Metallica or if it was Romeo Void, it did. They didn't separate by genre or style. It was just like if you're doing it on your own, we're playing you kind of thing,
Yeah,
which was cool. But speaking of videos boosting a song, a tune that didn't make your list is Nina's, or is it Nena? Uh, 99 Luftballons, which peaked on March 3rd at number two. I didn't realize
yeah,
it climbed all the way to
yeah,
number two, but I hadn't heard this. Well, I hear it, but I don't like listen to it because it's kind of like in sort of in the background sometimes in stores. It seems to get
yeah,
caught up in these mixes, but sitting down and listening to it, man, this has a huge synth bass groove.
yeah,
Uh and it's got this weird juxtaposition of like punk guitar and like sissy 80s keyboard.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
like a really interesting tension there.
yeah,
And of course, it's better in the original German than
yeah, yeah.
than the
No,
Red Balloons translation.
yeah, I agree. That's what I like. I mean, it's not really a song I ever would have put on just I've heard it so much, but I that is what's cool about it is like the change in time signatures and the different styles with the rock and the like you said the kind of poppy synth groove. I think it was kind of supposed to be like a pseudo like nuclear war protest song, but being the '80s and Cold War era, you did have those type themes, seep into pop music. But yeah, yeah, I mean, probably the highest charting one hit wonder of the year at number two. I don't think we had a number one in '84. So, it's on a lot of lists of greatest one hit wonders ever. And I think a large part is because it was so successful and so unique with the with being sung in German or parts of it being sung in German. So
Yeah, and I remember the video was pretty cool as well. I
yeah,
can't remember anything about it, but it was
yeah.
cool. And then another group that you did an entire list of is Style Council. So My Ever Changing Moods from their Cafe Blue record peaked at number 29 on June 9th. And as I mentioned, you did a whole list of great Style Council singles. How does this one stack up for you against other Style Council stuff?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it made my list of essential singles, so it's definitely up there. And of course, it was there. They had a lot of hits in their native UK, but that was the only top 40 pop hit. I think there were some that maybe made like adult contemporary charts because they had a few that were a little slower, kind of slower and jazzier. But yeah, it's among their best. I love Style Council. They're a little polarizing because there's so much different from the Jam. That was his previous band, who were more of a kind of straightforward, like mod punk kind of band. And then,
Paul Weller's
what?
original
Yeah,
band, right? Yeah.
right. And then Paul Weller went on to have a really long solo career, which is still going to this day. So he's kind of a massive star in the UK, but I guess probably more of a cult figure in the US. But I really love the Style Council because of the R&B and jazz and his wife at the time. I think it was Dee. Can't remember her name, but was a backup singer, and Mick Talbot was the keyboardist.
Oh
And
yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The girl in the videos was his
yeah,
wife.
yeah. And so, but yeah, like my ever changing moods, like it has kind of a cool like synth bass line, kind of shows like how Paul Weller was influenced by a lot of the synthy American R&B at the time. So yeah, yeah, I definitely recommend him. And also, I'll say I think that was Paul Weller's best singing. Like his voice was really on point. I thought with the Style Council, I think he was really trying to match like the kind of jazzy R&B sound. So I think they're great. But I mean, they're a little hit and miss on their album, so you're probably best off getting a singles comp for entry to them. So
Another great British band, like the Stranglers or Stone Roses, who were huge in the UK but never really broke big in the States. The Jam as well, for that matter.
yeah.
Now, when I listen back to that tune, it seems like I remember a more orchestrated, version with more instrumentation. And the version I keep hearing is just him and piano. Am I losing my mind?
Oh, for my ever changing
My
moods.
ever-changing moods,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, that I think that I've heard that version as well. But yeah, no, and I think there were different mixes. But if you pull up like the music video, it should be, or if you play the music video on my article list, it should be the one with all the instrumentation, and it's got a cool video. They're like racing bicycles and shot outdoors and stuff. So, but yeah, they did that with a lot of their songs. They do, yeah, kind of solo instrument versions and different dance mixes. But that was a big thing in the 80s in general, 12-inch mixes and all that. So.
He really, I mean, going from the jam to that more soul-based type of songwriting and singing, he showed himself to be really versatile, Paul Weller.
Hmm. For
Um,
sure.
Changing gears a little bit here, another one hitter that didn't make your post was Twisted Sister's "We're Not Gonna Take It," which
Hmm.
peaked at number 21 on September 22nd. And what can you say, right? Dee
Yeah.
Snider pretty much brought heavy metal into the video era and kind of spawned what became known as hair metal. Am I right on that?
Oh, I mean, I would think so. I'm not an expert on hair metal, but I mean, definitely a lot more came in the years to come with Poison and Rat and all, dozens of them. But yeah, that was probably one of the first top 40 hits that would classify as, I guess, glam metal or hair metal. I think Twisted Sister had been around since the 70s, and I'm not sure what album that was for them, but and they probably had some hits on the rock charts. That's what we need to, you know, with our list, we're just counting the pop hits, so that some of these bands they may have I've got some response from people like, oh, they're not a one hit wonder. It's like, well, by our criteria and by the most common criteria, they are, because they had one crossover hit on the pop charts. So I imagine Twisted Sister maybe had a few more, but yeah, I mean, it's not one of my favorites from the year personally, but I mean it's an anthem, and it's essential for that type of music for sure. So.
Sure, and D continues to be influential.
Mhm.
I hear him on podcasts and weighing in on social issues and political issues. He's a super interesting guy, really intelligent,
Yeah,
and sort of visionary in that ZZ Top kind of way, right? Where here's an old band who managed to make it in the video era by finding a niche. In Dee's case, it was makeup and multicolored hair and stuff like that, and also bringing in that bit from Animal House, the whatever the dude, no, the ROTC guy from Animal House was like the
yeah,
little sort of storyline going on in that video, which was kind of an interesting uh, turn that videos took from just sort of handheld, in the studio or live clips. You know,
yeah,
so yeah, that was definitely a visionary sort of video as well as a great song. And the last one we're going to talk about is one of my personal favorites, Mike Reno and Ann Wilson's "Almost Paradise," the love theme from Footloose, which peaked at number 7 on July 14th. Now, Loverboy was my jam in the 80s, but I was kind of over it by the time Footloose came out. So I was not into this tune at the time. But still, it's become a guilty pleasure for me. And I really want this to be my karaoke jam with my wife, but I just can't hit the pitches, Mike. And he can't either anymore, by the way.
yeah. So it was the Loverboy singer, and then one of the Wilsons from
From
Heart,
Heart.
right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it would probably fall into the power ballad genre. And
Quintessential
yeah,
power
yeah.
ballad, I'd say.
Yeah, if you love power ballads, definitely check it out if you're not familiar. But yeah, and another example of a soundtrack song being a big hit. It's kind of cool how the effort the studios made into the soundtracks. They were not just wanting a hit with the movie, they want a hit soundtrack too. And sometimes they had a hit with both, which was the case with Footloose. So
Right. And then we went on to, have soundtracks inspired by the
yeah,
film
right.
with
Yeah.
tunes that didn't even appear
Yeah.
in the film. So,
Exactly.
okay. Yeah, and notably Ann Wilson, heavily influenced the singer from Greta Van Fleet as well.
Oh, yeah. I
Well,
can see that.
that's my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
Not so much the Robert Plant thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I love that song. I crank it. I don't hear it often, thank God, but I
Yeah.
crank it whenever I do. Um, well, anyway, the top 40 didn't have any more time for these artists. They only had their one moment in the sun, and sadly, we don't have any more time for them either. So again, I'm Chris Bisha of 360degreesound.com. I'd like to thank Austin Bureau Chief David Hopper for joining me. And
Thank you.
thanks to all of you for watching. And we'll be back again soon to talk more about music from all angles. Thanks. Thanks, David.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Thank you, Chris.